I'm going to start this off with saying something rather controversial, and that is, I used to think that people use burnout as an excuse. So, how does a habit and mindset coach become burnt out himself? Well, here are 5 reasons that I believe is affecting a lot of us becoming, I'm going to stop using the word burnout, but just mentally tired, a bit mentally drained. And these are 5 kind of macro elements that are happening in our world and just the way life has changed over the past 10, 20 or so years. So I think it's interesting to see what they are. So first reason, and probably the biggest reason, is the information tsunami. There was a stat that went out the other day that we consume more information and data in a single day than just our grandparents did in a whole month. Now, if you think about that, that's an extraordinary amount of information and data and content, right? And this is a reason why I actually think to myself, should I really be posting 3 times a week on LinkedIn, twice or 3 times a week on Instagram, every single week on YouTube? Do we really need another person putting out all of this information and content? Because it's just so much. And what this really means is we're just being pulled from one end to the other, this direction, that direction, because with all of this data and information and content and effectively people's opinions and all of these researches, there's always 2 sides to every story, right? There's actually probably more than 2 sides to every story. There's probably like 5 or 6 different ways that we can go down, right? Different directions that we can go. So just for our little brains, we haven't been able to adapt that quickly as computers and technology, and especially AI, have in the past 10, 20 years. It's just too much for our brains to compute. So we're like, okay, well, who do we believe? Who do we trust? Second is the comparison trap. Now, we've all heard the quote, comparison is the root of all evil. I think that's the quote anyway. If it's not, I'll write it. Actually, let me just Google that right now. Comparison is the thief of joy. There we go. Which is true, right? Because we see all of these highlight reels from everyone. And most importantly, and this is something that I preach to my clients about as having a patient mindset, is that we're seeing people getting results in 2 weeks that used to take years. People, we want results straight away now. We're not willing to put in the hard yards. And so we're comparing ourselves to everyone. Why am I not at this certain level? Why do I not have this job title or this business that I've created or this amount of money or this body or this lifestyle? Whatever it might be, we're just comparing ourselves to just 0.001% of people on Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube. And half the time, they're not even real. They're not even real life, right? They're not manipulated, but they're created to provide, content and entertainment and that kind of stuff. Third, and I was going to say arguably the biggest one as well, but probably the biggest one when it comes to business and our work and our jobs and careers, is the always on culture. 20 years ago, when you left the office, you left work. You didn't have an iPhone to bring back to your sofa, to your dining table, to your bed. Now we have our work emails in our pockets 24/7, right beside our bedside table. Even if there's not necessarily, say our leaders or managers saying you don't need to respond to this email late at night or whatever, there's that in the back of our mind that, okay, we can respond, so we should respond. And so now the lines between work and our personal lives, they haven't even just been blurred, they've been completely erased, because our personal phone is normally our work phone. So we have all of our stuff on our work, notifications, emails, etc. And even though there might not be the expectation to always be on, it's always kind of in the back of our mind, well, we can respond, so we probably should respond, right? Fourth is the cost of living. And I know we've heard that a bunch of times. But I mean, stats are there to be shown and read upon, right? In the past, 5-10 years, the cost of living has just dramatically increased. We now know that, 40-50 years ago, I think it was like you needed 3x your salary to get your first house. Now, I think you need like 12x to get your salary to get your first house. And the cost of groceries, we all know, have gone up dramatically. Everything in the world has just gone up dramatically. So the economic squeeze that so many of us are facing, and not even just like the next generation coming up and how hard it is for them to get on the property ladder and all that kind of stuff, just even people in all age groups are feeling the economic squeeze because wages just aren't keeping up with just how expensive life is these days, right? So just the macro environment of the way our lives are now, how much financial pressure so many of us are in, obviously takes a big toll on us. And this is, financial struggles have always been there throughout history, but really in the past 5 years, I think we can all agree that the cost of living and just the economic squeeze and how expensive life is just obviously putting more and more pressure on ourselves. And fifth and lastly is the measurement obsession. We track absolutely everything. I mean, look at me, I'm wearing a Whoop right here, right? So every single morning I see how many steps I did the day before. I see what my resting heart rate is. I see how many calories I burn, what workouts I'm doing. If we take it into a work scenario, it's performance metrics. Every single thing can now be analyzed. How many calls we do, how many time we spend on the phone, how many emails we send. All of these metrics are there and we're constantly being watched, we're constantly being analysed. And so in the back of our mind, we obviously know that. So that in turn puts a different dynamic on the way we think about things, because we're like, okay, I'm being watched, I'm tracking this, I'm tracking that, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing that. And it's just tiring in for lack of a better explanation. So now the doom and gloom is over and done with. What can we do about it? Well, firstly, the world has always changed, right? And so humans, we've always adapted. We think about just how much the world has changed 200 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago. We've always adapted, right? And essentially, because you have to adapt, you can't be left behind. So the first step is really just having the self-awareness to know this, right? And this has been like an interesting video for me to make, and my newsletter was about this the other day, just how so many of us are burnt out because of these reasons. And like I said at the start of this, I used to think that burnout was an excuse and just kind of get on with it, etc. But once you start to look into this kind of stuff, you actually start to realize, okay, this is all the macro environment. So now you have to look within and just do a bit of self-awareness, self-analysis. So first things first, just start small, make some small adjustments. So little things, and this is again a habit that I love and I preach to all my clients, is don't check your phone for the first hour of the day. The world is not going to end in the first hour of the day. You're not that important. You can survive without checking it, and it just allows you to set a little boundary. Limit information that you take on. So just get it from a few sources on YouTube, a few sources on LinkedIn, and not go doom scrolling through all of these information and content and reels and stuff. Embrace slower progress. Again, something that I preach about is patient mindset. It's unnatural and it's probably untrue when you see all of these highlight reels and all of these people getting results in 2 weeks. Things take time. We're humans, we're not AI. Building relationships take time. Getting into shape takes time. It takes 1 year, 2 years. So I hope that was useful. I certainly found it useful. Drop a comment in the comment section below. Give this video a like, subscribe, all that malarkey. See you in the next one.